Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a video on the North Command Vandal. I am struggling to keep my voice alive, so it is going to be a rather short video. But just so you guys know, the paracord is okay, the built-in Kill 8.0 switches feel okay, and it does have a 3389 sensor. The main feature of the mouse, though, is, of course, the built-in wrist rest, and I like seeing companies taking stabs at innovation. Sometimes it doesn't work quite as anticipated or as intended, and I want to get into why this particular mouse does not work for me and the way that I aim. So most importantly, when you innovate, I think build quality is a very, very significant thing, especially when it's your first mouse or one of your first products that's going to be hitting the market, right? And one thing that I would note is that there is a little bit of noticeable warping in mouse 1 and mouse 2. You will see a few little divots there when I actually shine a light on it. And it's not something that I necessarily feel or that bothers me in game, just something to note about the overall integrity of the plastic utilized itself and the way it was manufactured. There is a lot of side flex, even with just a little bit of force applied to the sides, just picking it up. You can hear this thing kind of whine, which is not really an issue to me. I mean, if I have my IEMs in, I have my headphones in, it's not really going to be that much of a problem. The Kale 8.0s actually feel pretty good here. Not the best, but certainly not by any stretch of the imagination the worst. Mouse 3 is definitely pretty spammable. Scroll wheel feels okay. The side buttons have a bit of post-travel, not really a whole lot of pre-travel, not really an issue in game. Side flex, literally almost none. They did a good job there. And again, just a bit of pre and post travel on mouse 1 and mouse 2, but nothing significant. I would say the shape of the mouse, it is definitely a, not necessarily the smallest mouse, not necessarily the largest mouse. It kind of reminds me a bit of the S2 from Zowie, but definitely with its differences. But just the size would be kind of like an S2. Now, the size becomes a problem because if you have very large hands and you are trying to utilize the wrist rest, there's only really one way to rest your arm or your wrist on the wrist rest. I mean, you kind of just naturally know where to rest your wrist on this. And when I rest my wrist on this, I have a lot of overhang with my fingers on the particular mouse, and it actually causes me to force myself into a claw grip. For me, claw gripping the mouse is okay, but when I try to hit the bottom mouse button, it causes me to bring my thumb all the way back, and it's not the most comfortable, and it's not really the most accessible mouse for because of the size of the mouse and me being forced into that position. The worst thing about the Vandal is if you're not an arm aimer and you're not moving your arm for vertical movements, if you do any micro adjustments with your fingers at all, you are literally not able to do that on this mouse. And the reason why is because your hand is, again, locked into that wrist rest, and you have no ability to move the mouse up, no ability to move the mouse down, no ability to move the mouse side by side. You literally have to still continue to use your wrist to have side-to-side movements. And then for any vertical movements, you have to move your arm. There is no moving the mouse up because it is stuck to the wrist rest. The wrist rest, to me, is kind of a problem, and you can see I lost a mouse gate there. The adhesive wasn't very good, so it did pop off with a lot of ease. But the wrist rest doesn't move. So you are locked into a one size, and one size here does not fit all. So it is going to be a bit of a problem. And again, if you want to do any micro adjustments at all, this mouse is not going to allow you to do it. For instance, if I want to grab a mouse that is literally a similar size, I have no ability to do this with the mouse or this with the mouse. All the movements required that I utilize for aiming with my micro adjustments. You cannot do that on the Vandal. And I think that's a really, really bad thing and a bad limitation. I think it's just a concept that doesn't work. When you're cutting and literally limiting somebody from doing any micro adjustments at all, I just can't see that being a positive thing for aiming and for gaming. I think it's a cool concept. I like that they are trying to innovate, but there has to be a system here that allows for that micro adjustments, whether this is on some sort of like a lever system that can move up and down and kind of adjust and then retract. That's going to take a lot of research and development. And for that reason alone, I just think that this mouse is not ready for public consumption. I think that people are going to be very displeased with this. It is nice if you want to have some sort of wrist support, if you are somebody who has some sort of an injury, or you need, to specifically arm aim and arm aim only. I guess this has a purpose for you. But again, anybody else who was kind of interested in the Vandal, just that cutting off of the micro adjustments, I would never be able to recommend the Vandal for public consumption. Another point in terms of build quality that I do need to point out is that when you are adding this little lever system, you have two joints. You have one here and one here. And as you are moving your wrist, you actually feel this flexing down at the bottom. You can hear it flexing, you can feel it flexing. And it is something that doesn't feel good at all. When you are moving your hand as well, you will have the top joint flexing. You can see and hear where it kind of flexes at the top joint. And it, again, is just something that adds another layer of flex, another area of just creaking that doesn't feel good when you're using the mouse. And I think that's something that is going to be very hard for them to avoid, but it's something that I think anybody who is used to just a wireless mouse experience is not going to like going back to a wired mouse with a lot of flex and just kind of mediocre build quality in feel. And guys, I am not able to show you gameplay clips with this mouse. It's not something that I was able to use in game because I am limiting myself too much with the main primary way that I actually utilize my mouse for tracking as well as tack shooters. I do a lot of micro movements and micro adjustments under my palm because, as you guys know, my hands are very large. So I have the ability to kind of do those micro adjustments just with my fingers inside the underside of my palm. Because of that, I think that overwhelming majority of gamers are not going to find or take an interest to this. I think it's going to be very poor for performance for a lot of users. I think that if anybody is suffering from wrist pain, I really do think that maybe you could look at the mouse and hopefully it would be something that can solve an issue for you. But honestly, right now, I just don't recommend it because I just don't think that it's refined. It's nice to see innovation. I like what North Command is doing here and putting people with pains and injuries in mind. But I just think that there's a lot of refinements that have to be made to make this usable while still providing a comfort benefit for those users. So guys, that is it for this review. I unfortunately will not be able to recommend this mouse for you guys. Again, I think it's just something that might not be quite ready to hit the market just yet. So I hope that helped, guys. If it did, please leave a sub to the channel and I'll see you guys in the next review. Peace.